In a world where hopium and common sense collide, starring the CryptoKeeper and BlockchainCrusader. Welcome to Debate Crypto.
So how do we see inflation affecting the market, right? How do we see inflation happening throughout the next year? Because we know they're going to keep printing money in the United States. We know that's going to keep happening. How would that be affecting Bitcoin and the crypto markets if we don't see a super cycle and we see a bear market? Do you see that changing things up, or how do you see that affecting crypto in general?
Alex, kick it off. Go ahead.
Oh man, excuse me. I mean, I think we are seeing that to an extent. I mean, some charts, just comparing this to 2017, it looks like in some regards that we are outperforming 2017, factoring in general diminishing returns. So it's this weird thing of like, I don't think the returns will diminish as much because of inflation. And then next time around 2024, I think it's something similar. That's as simple of an answer that I could give. I haven't really put a ton of thought into this. I haven't really seen much of an effect when it comes to inflation on crypto, because I mean, you look at the M2 money supply and the M1 money supply, like we're not anywhere near like previous highs. When you factor in the amount of dollars that are in the system, I mean, it would take Bitcoin getting up to over $100,000, but even much higher than that for us to see any kind of return, factoring in the M2 and M1 money supplies. And so I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure.
You know, Miguel, I know you know where I'm about to head with this. I actually am going to be on a and I've heard BitBoy Crypto talk about this. I've heard Ben Armstrong talk about this, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And I actually was thinking this before I ever even heard him putting out this idea. I was kind of thinking it through and talking to Tim, which is Crypto Weatherman. I actually am subscribing to the idea, and I think that it's already started. And I'll tell you why in just a second. I'm subscribing to the idea that the only way to get our economy back together is to essentially crush it. And so I think that's the only way this happens. We are at a point. It's like when you're backed into a corner and there's 5 guys in front of you. The only way you're going to get out of that is you're going to get beat up, right? You might be able to fight your way through it, but you're going to get beat up. And so I'm actually subscribing to the idea that we may be headed towards deflation, which is terrible for the economy. People think at first, like, wait a minute, our money's going to be worth more. But the problem is, and let me explain why. I'll give you an example of why I think it's already happening. Lumber prices. I own a construction company. A lot of you know that. Lumber prices were absolutely, I'm talking about ungodly, okay? I'm talking about $128 for a 2x12x20 pressure treated board, right? They are now, and that was just literally that. It was all the way up until 60 days ago. They were all the way up that high. Today, we just had to purchase some lumber, and that same board was $56. Okay. So what I'm trying to explain is that there is a reason for this. These lumber mills did not actually do what they said they were doing. They weren't actually not able to push the lumber out. I know people that work in the mills. They were taking advantage of a situation with our, the fog around the world, right? They were taking advantage of that. And so I think we're at a point now where things are going to have this, they're going to start to back off, and it's going to feel good. Okay. So let me explain this. It is going to feel good at first. You're going to be like right now for me, oh, lumber prices down. Okay, I could get with that. And then things will start to feel like they're coming off. And that's part of what is going to help our economy start to say, hey, we're recovering. But very quickly, we're going to go into what's called stagflation, which means people are not spending money because they believe and are figuring out that their money is going to be worth more 6 months ago or 6 months from now than it is today. And so what do? Well, if I'm going to buy a car, I'll just buy it in 6 months. It'll be less expensive. And then the biggest problem, and I'll finish it with this, the biggest problem with deflation when it gets there is the real value of debt becomes higher. So let me explain it. So if you owe $500K on a mortgage, right? And what will end up happening is these companies, while the dollar becomes more and more valuable, these companies are going to want to pay their employees less and less and less. But that price of that mortgage has not changed. People don't want to take a pay cut. They want pay raises. It doesn't matter that the prices are coming down. They are still going to want to continue to move onward and upward. And it messes with that real value of debt. It's going to feel good at first. And I think in the long term, it's going to be part of what crushes our economy. I don't know. That's a outside the box kind of opinion, but I just don't see how else we're going to get out of it.
Somebody has to stop the gravy train. I mean, so you talk about that, and that's fascinating. And I do agree in the sense that there's not going to be, there has to be some kind of struggle. And since 2008, the financial crisis, we have done everything we could to prevent that struggle. Yep. But how much does, and I have no problem putting my cards on the table and saying that Joe Biden is the worst president of all time. How much will Joe Biden, and the next one, whoever comes after him, is going to be even worse. Okay, I'll say that. How much will he or the current administration be willing to allow that to happen? And because people are going to be furious with him, and they're going to not vote Democrat next time. They're going to vote for whoever is going to be providing, the next set of lies. That's going to
next solution.
Exactly. So, somebody's going to have to sacrifice. Somebody's going to have to lay down his presidency or hers, whatever, to, and I don't know who's going to be willing to do that. I
agree with that. I agree that, the next president, whoever it is, somebody needs to put down and make hard decisions that are not going to be politically in favor to them, their presidency, their party, whatever. Yeah. And nobody wants to do that. And that's the big problem, is nobody wants to make the hard decisions. Nobody wants to say, hey, we got to stop printing money. We got to start figuring out our problems with the debt situation. We got to cut back on spending. We got to do this. We got to do that. And force it to happen. And it's going to be short-term pain, right? Maybe their whole presidency, they might not even get reelected, but that pain will heal, and it'll become a better thing than, if you have a busted knee and you say, well, I'm just not going to have surgery because it's going to be too much of a painful recovery. I'm just going to keep on with my busted knee. That's kind of the mentality that we're in. Our economy is a busted knee that needs surgery for recovery. And the only way to do it is you're going to have short-term pain. You're going to have to go through that knee recovery that's going to suck. It's terribly painful.
And you know what I think is really cool about the world that we live in right now? Miguel very, very famously, if you ask me, said we live in a world of misinformation, not of information, but misinformation. Yeah. Okay, cool. But I think the cool thing about the world that we live in now is it is hip. It is cool to be financially literate, right? Well, with that being said, because it was not cool back when I was growing up, I'm 37 years old. And if I showed up to a party, talking to guys with a beer in my hand about, the debt ceiling, I'm getting kicked out of the party, right? The girls aren't talking to me. I'm out of here, right? And so it's become cool. Well, because of that, people are actually starting to understand some of these ideas as it relates to economics. So I think that will help propel at the point. Listen, there's always going to be half the people hate you, half the people love you, right? But at the point that we get to a crossroads, I think that enough people will at least understand, hey, we're not in a good spot. We do exactly what you said, Miguel. We've got to do the surgery, not just continuing on with the busted knee. I totally